last week we discussed living lean in the context of our finances, saving money, spending wisely, not blowing our money on stuff we don't need to spend it on, saving up for hard times. And today we're going to shift in the same mindset but in a different direction and talk a little bit specifically about us personally and us being lean. Now, I don't want anybody to feel self-conscious, okay? You're all looking at me and you're not looking at each other. So if anybody should feel a little self-conscious right now, it's me, not you. So don't worry about that. Just think about the message here and no one's looking at you. At least that I can see. If I see someone looking at you, I'll get on to them. How about that? All right, so no fear. So what does it mean to live lean? Well, I tell you, last Sunday night was an exciting night. I got to go to Ignite, which is always fun. A lot of students, I think there were over 30 students last night, and I found myself squished in the corner of the room, like in this itty-bitty space about the size of my guitar processor here. And so I spent 40 minutes like this. But you know, it was really great. It was so exciting to be packed in a room with people that were hungry to hear God's Word and that were worshiping, and it was just a great night. And it made me think about the message today a little bit. Because you know, it didn't take $1 million and all this amazing lighting and sound and all these things that we think are so important in the church world in order to worship God. It's just a bunch of people in a little room worshiping God, experiencing that together. It was great. And I'm so thankful for Allen, Indiana, and their willingness to open their home for our college students every week. All right, we're going to look at 1 Corinthians 6:19. So if you have a Bible, a phone, a tablet, something that you can read the Bible with, a book that has words on it, that's good too. If you got one of those, open that up. We're going to look at 1 Corinthians 6:19. Where it says, "Don't you know that your body is a sanctuary of the Holy Spirit who is in you, whom you have from God? You are not your own, you were bought with a price, therefore glorify God in your body." All right, so last week we established, and hopefully not for the first time, that everything that we have belongs to the Lord. All of our time, our money, all of the things that we think of as personal resources, those things belong to the Lord, right? But also our health belongs to the Lord. Have you ever thought about that? Have you thought about that? So whether we choose to use our bodies, you call that exercise, you can call it hard manual labor, you can call it whatever you want, and whether we choose to ingest lots of nasty food or healthy food, that those choices are based upon the understanding that we are not our own. That really we are stewards of ourselves. And if you think about it, and that's something that I don't think about a lot. I don't think of myself, my eating habits, the way that I exercise or don't exercise, and whether I just take good care of myself, trying to get to the dentist, if I have some kind of an ongoing health concern, getting to the doctor. I mean, those basic things that should be common sense that sometimes we fail to do. Now, why is that? Well, I think the problem is that we have too much. We just have an abundance of everything. We have an abundance of food. We have an abundance of time, even though we don't feel like it. But if we have time to sit on the couch or sit behind a desk, then we have too much time, too much waste, and so we don't think about the need to be lean. It's interesting, when the last couple times I was in Ukraine on a mission trip, I did happen to notice something interesting about Ukrainians. By and large, they're pretty lean people. They're not, they're tall, but they're not, wide, like some of us Americans, But why is that? Well, they don't have cars, so they have to walk everywhere. Well, that's a big advantage right there. Think about what if you had to walk to work every day, to and from, and even to lunch. If you're going to do shopping, if you're going to go to the store, you have to walk there. Well, that would be a different deal because we'd be burning a lot of extra calories. They don't have a surplus of food. The average family there makes about $300 a month combined income. And things cost a little bit less than they do here, but pretty close to the same. Some things cost more. A pair of tall boots, which is the style in Ukraine, which everyone in Ukraine for some reason feels like they have to have, is like $150. So there are things that cost more, but there are things that cost less. So they get by with a lot leaner budget, and therefore there's a lot less to add to themselves, if you get what I mean. So we have a little bit of a disadvantage, if you think about it, because we have plenty of, think about it this way. If you, let's say you're totally broke, and you're hungry, and you have no way to buy food. Well, I can think of 3 places, I can think of 4, 5, 6, I can think of 7 places right now that I can go to get food. So really hunger is a choice for a lot of us here. It's not a choice if you live in South America. It's not a choice if you live in Africa. But for here it is. So we have this abundance of food. And so we are then in a place of being stewards of that. Now, as we talk about this verse, I think there's an issue of ownership that we have to grab a hold of here. And I think we don't like to talk about it very much because we like to do what we like to do. And by golly, we worked hard all day. It's time to go home and sit down and watch Stargate or whatever show you like to watch. By golly, and the last thing you want to do is work out, or getting up at 4:30 in the morning so that you can work out before you go to work. Who wants to do that? Especially last night, whenever we lost an hour of sleep. Yeah, feeling that just a little bit. So you should be thankful that we have church in the afternoon. What if you had to be at church at 8 o'clock this morning? Kudos to all of our brothers and sisters who were spiritually mature enough to get up and do that this morning. So we have these choices, and they frustrate us because, in the one hand, I think, by and large, even with all the misinformation out there, we generally understand the basic idea that our bodies were made to be worked. If we don't work them, the lean part of us, our bones and muscles, are going to decrease, and the not so lean part of us is going to increase. All right, that's generally how it works. And then, if we eat more calories than what our body mass index is, or that basically just means what you burn at rest, then you're going to gain, excess weight. So we generally know that. I think we're always looking for the fast way out. I love all these commercials that talk about losing so many pounds in so many days and all these drugs you can buy and yada, yada, yada. And, unfortunately, none of that really works very well. If it does, it causes you all kinds of health problems. So we're kind of down to the basic, fundamental spiritual fruit. And if you think about the whole gamut of weight issues and good health, it comes down to the basics, right? Self-control, patience. There's a lot of those fruits of the Spirit. So a good barometer for us as we think about our level of spiritual maturity, and this is the part I really don't like, this part here. I wish I could just kind of omit this part. But I have to say it because it's true. A good barometer for us in our spiritual walk, part of that has to do with our health. Now, there are things outside of our control. I'm not talking about those things, okay? There are some things that, if you break your leg, you're not going to work out for a while. And there's nothing you can do about that, so there's no reason to get upset about it, all right? If you have some kind of injury. So I'm talking about the things that we can do something about. That's what we're talking about. So don't start, thinking about all those other, what about this? This is just talking about just the general fundamentals here. So we have to make these difficult decisions as to whether or not we're going to take this verse in 1 Corinthians seriously, and whether or not we're going to use the spiritual fruit that is laid out for us to better our health. All right, let's look at another verse. Let's look at Hebrews 12, 1 through 2. All right, here's another great verse that maybe can guide us as we walk this slippery slope today. Therefore, since we also have such a large cloud of witnesses surrounding us, let us lay aside every weight and the sin that so easily ensnares us. Let us run with endurance the race that lies before us, keeping our eyes on Jesus, the source and perfecter of our faith, who for the joy that lay before him endured a cross and despised the shame, and has sat down at the right hand of God's throne. All right, so really what we have here is there's a reason why we belong to God. We have a purpose. We have a reason for existing. And if we allow obstacles in our life that prevent us from accomplishing this task, all right, of sharing the truth of God, of running that race that God talks about, the race of life, then we are going to self-destruct and not be able to accomplish the things that we're able to accomplish. if God intended for you to live to be 100 years old, but you eat 5 Big Macs a day and do finger exercises for your workout, and you end your life at age 60, you've lost 40 years of ministry that God had for you. So in a sense, there's a lot more at stake than some of the irrelevant things, probably, that we think of. For me, when I think about it, I want to look good. I want to, feel good and have energy. And so, obviously, those things are important, but they're not as important as the deeper spiritual truths. So I think the starting place, maybe you've kind of ignored this area of your life, and you're like, oh man, now I'm listening to this message, now I might have to do something. What do I do? What's the starting place? The starting place is recognizing that it's more than just looking good, feeling good, blah, 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 whatever the commercials say. It's about living our life to the fullest. It's about being the person of God that He has destined for you to be. So are you going to be that person? Now, is it all about being fit and being in good health? No. No, this is just a part of it. This is just one of the parts. This is one of the areas where we can become distracted. Just like any area of sin, any area of distraction can get us away, can get us down. So it's not that it all rises and falls on this one thing, but this certainly is an area where a lot of us need to make some changes. So let's talk about some practical things. First of all, what does it really mean to be lean? There's so much misinformation out there. We can't really take time today to go through all those things. This isn't really a fitness class, but I'd certainly be glad to talk with you and share my story. There was a time where I was a big guy, 240 plus pounds, 33% body fat, when I was about 25 years old, 23 years old. And God really worked in my life, and He used these verses, and He used this understanding to change me. And I'm a lot leaner than I used to be. Not as lean as I could be, but leaner than I once was. And so it's certainly an ongoing work in my life. But to be lean, there's really 2 tests for that, all right? Weight is irrelevant. So if you're using a scale to determine whether or not you're lean, that is a waste of time. Because there are bodybuilders that are 2% body fat, and they weigh 300 pounds. And they're lean. Right? And they're not overweight. So you can't use weight to judge anything. You've got 2 ways. There's the more specific scientific test, and that's a body fat percentage. You get these little $5 calipers, and they're real easy to use. There's also the jump up and down test. All right? Has anybody ever heard of the jump up and down test? Okay, 1, 2, okay, a couple of people. Okay, the jump up and down test means you jump up and down, and anything that moves that shouldn't move is not lean, all right? It needs to go. So if you don't want to take the time to do the body fat caliper and all that, you can do the jump up and down test. So that's how you know if you've got some area that you need to work on. All right. So what are some practical issues here? Well, I'm going to list real quickly for you list people that just love lists. I'm going to give you 7 things that are just easy, simple, but they're going to put your spiritual disciplines to the test. Okay? So if you write these down, here they are. Number 1, eat smaller portions of food more often. All right? Eat 6 times a day or so, small portions. Okay? That doesn't mean like, you tell your boss, it's 10:30, I got to go have my mid-morning meal because my pastor told me that I need to lean down. Okay, that's not what I'm talking about. That's you have something in your pocket, you pull it out, a multi-grain bar or whatever, protein bar, and you eat it quickly and you move on. Okay, it's not like have a 1-hour feast in the middle of the afternoon or in the middle of the morning or right before you go to bed. All right, just small meals more often. Number 2, pack your lunch with fresh foods or eat at home. Okay, stop eating out so much. Don't eat out so much. I hate that because I love to eat out. But the truth is, number 1, it kills our budget. I don't know anything that can rack up the credit card bill faster than eating out, especially when you're a family of 7. That's why we don't do it very often. All right? But besides that, most foods prepared in restaurants have butter and oil and salt and all the things that make it taste good. That's why you want to eat there, because they load it up with all these processed things that are not going to contribute to your leanness. So pack a lunch, don't eat out. So you're gonna double whammy on that. You're gonna save money and you're gonna be healthier. All right, that's a big one. All right, now the problem is I meet a lot of you guys for lunch at times, so I'm kind of being a hypocrite there a little bit. But I try to do that in a balanced way. So I know we have to do that occasionally. But if you can't, if you're just going to eat by yourself, just pack a lunch. It's cheaper, and you can put some good, healthy things in there. Number 3, you work out 3 or 4 times a week. Okay? Now, there are some of you that have this religious belief that working out is a waste of time, where you could be doing something productive. Now, this is not a bad belief. I don't necessarily disagree with that. If you're one of those people, there are so many ways that you can get exercise. You can go hiking through the national forest. We have a beautiful, huge national forest just 20 miles away from here that you can hike through if you're an outdoorsy kind of person. You can, one thing that I really like to get into doing is cutting wood. If you don't have a fireplace yourself, I'm sure there's lots of people in the church or outside of the church that would love to have firewood. You can just go cut it down. I mean, that's pretty hard work. How many people ever cut firewood with a wood axe? Okay, yeah, that's tough work. You get a good workout doing that, and you're definitely not wasting your time because you're going to bless your family or someone else's getting that wood cut up. All right, but you got to get up doing something. All right, got to get your heart rate up. What's interesting? I think a lot of people don't know why working out burns calories and why it's good for your heart health. When you use the blood flow in your veins, like when the blood goes faster, when your heart's pumping it faster, it erodes the buildup of lipids and things that's what causes heart disease and other arterial type diseases. It erodes that down when it moves fast. So not only are you burning those calories, but you're also improving your cardiovascular system and your heart's ability to pump blood through all that. Just a little side thing. All right, number 4, drink more water. I don't probably need to explain why. I think we all know why. Drink more water. Drink less pop. All right, and for those of you who think that drinking diet pop is good for you, my poor wife, she's just going to die when I say this because she loves diet pop so much. I kind of do too. I like it. I try not to drink it. There is just as much acid to rot your teeth out in sugar-free pop as there is in sugar pop. And so don't, if you don't believe me, ask your dentist. So try to get off of that too. If you migrated from regular to diet, that's a good step. But if you can kind of get it away from it altogether, tea and water and Crystal Light is good. All right, number 5, don't drink specialty drinks. Now, last week, this is what happens with the power of suggestion. I mentioned the Sonic Blast. Well, I actually went and had one yesterday. It was my wife's fault because she said that she wanted to go to Sonic to get a beverage. And while I was there, I saw the picture of the Sonic Blast, and I thought, I really need to have one of those. Now, I had just worked out, and I was really exhausted, but it was still not the greatest choice that I could have had. So all those specialty drinks that are 300 to 1,000 calories, those are a great way just to wipe out, without having to sacrifice, your food that you like. Getting rid of those will, as we mentioned last week, save you money, and it will help you lean down. Number 6, eat more lean meat. Well, that's interesting. Eat more lean meat and less sugar. All right, just that one thing. That one thing alone is going to do a lot of good for you. Lean, unprocessed meats, which I know it's hard to find those, but those are a great way to stay lean because they have proteins and amino acids, and your body has to burn a lot of calories to digest them, and they promote lean body mass, which burns more calories at rest. It's just a much better choice than all of those carbohydrates that we love. Although, the grains and oats and things like that are good. It's just like the refined sugars, the Lucky Charms with marshmallows and the Snickers and all those things that we love so much that are loaded with refined sugar. All right, and then number 7, lastly, avoid processed foods. Just generally avoid them. If it's in a package, if it's in a frozen meal, it's processed, heavily processed. So there's all kinds of nasty chemicals in it and that are not good for us. All right, so try to avoid those, and I know that means that we have to make some food, like real food, which may shock some of you, I know, terribly, to think that you might have to actually eat something that really came from a real animal or that grew from the ground, but it is really good for you, and you will be glad that you made those choices. So, just a little quick aside there, if you're thinking to yourself, man, it's too complicated, I don't know what to do, blah, 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 and you've got 7 things. I try to do all 7 of these things. So I'm not asking you to do anything that I don't try to do myself. Now, obviously, as we know from my confession about my blast, it is the Reese's Peanut Butter Blast, by the way, to fully make out that confession. So it's not that I completely get these right 100% of the time. But, it's that spiritual fruit, that self-control, that patience, the peace of going through the process that I'm working on. And God hopefully is refining me. Well, I know He is. He's refining me through that process. All right. So let's talk a little bit about debauchery. Now, we know that debauchery is a sin. What does that mean exactly? Well, we see that particularly in the Old Testament. Debauchery is really a loss of self-control. Because as we think about really all sin, that's really at the core, it's a loss of self-control. It's whenever we decide that we know what's better for ourselves than God does, and we decide to go and do something that we know we ought not to do, that God's warned us, said, this is harmful to you, don't do this, but yet we want to do it, and so we go and do it. So debauchery is whenever we decide that we just can't control ourselves, and we just eat to make ourselves feel better. We eat to hide problems maybe that are feelings that we have. We eat to pass the time. Sometimes we're just bored and we're like, well, I'll just go to the kitchen and eat. We eat because we're addicted. And believe it or not, you can become addicted to eating. Your body gets kind of if you eat sugar, you get a little bit of an adrenaline rush, kind of an energy spike from that. Some people are real sensitive to satiety. That just means the feeling of feeling full. So if you don't feel full, then you feel insecure, and therefore you've got to eat and eat and eat some more. So all of those things are probably fall under that category. So if you're always kind of wondering, well, what is that, and why is that a sin? And it's really a sin because it's a loss of self-control. It's because we have, instead of letting the Holy Spirit reign over us and rule us in our lives, then we're letting something else control us. All right, so let's kind of focus this then. I think probably before I even started, we all knew that this is a choice that we need to be making if you're not making that choice. I think for some of us, we lack the right thinking process. That because we have kind of a malfunctioning cognitive process about it, then we always end up with the result that we don't want. And so I think thinking about it right is the first thing. And so that's why we laid out a couple of these verses here. But I want you to think a little bit about your responsibility, your personal responsibility. Some of your dads, some of your moms, some of your students, some of your grandparents, some of you are uncles and aunts. We all have responsibilities to people. I don't think there's anyone in this room that doesn't have some responsibility to someone else. I want you to think about it for a minute. Here's a great illustration that I like, and I'm going to have David come up and do another illustration, and some of the littler kids, which I don't know who all's in here still. We'll see. We got a few. Okay, we got a few of these guys. All right, he's going to help us with illustration in a bit. But one of the best illustrations that I like to think about this is in the airplane when they're going through all the instructions about what to do and not what to do and how to buckle your seatbelt, which, seriously, learn to buckle your seatbelt before you get on the airplane. But anyway, okay, so they're going through all that stuff, and one of the things they talk about is if you're a parent, they tell you to put your mask on first before you put your child's mask on, right? Right. And the reason for that is because if you lose the ability to breathe, which is kind of important for consciousness, then you're not going to be able to help your child. And that is one of for me, the strongest motivating factor for me with the lifestyle choices that I try to make, the healthy ones that we talked about, is because I realize that there are people that are counting on me. They're counting on me to be well. They're counting on me to be up and going and healthy and ready to serve, ready to help, ready to do, ready to teach, ready to whatever, to be there, to serve. And so they need me. They're counting on me. And if I don't take care of myself, then I'm not going to be there for them. All right, David, come up here, wherever you're at. Okay, he's coming. He's being back row Baptist today. All right, now, I need at first, do we have any 5-year-old girls in here? Do we have any? Oh, there's one. Okay, that's good. All right, do we have another 5-year-old girl in here? She's with her mom. How about let's see, some 6 or 7-year-old boys, 8-year-old boys. Okay, all right, Ben, come up here. Okay, Levi, okay, that's good. You all three come up. We're going to need 3 eventually here. Okay. Okay, well, that's too many. Well, that's probably too many. Yeah, no, that's okay. You guys come on up here. We'll just see. We'll just see what the limits are. See what the limits are. Now, here's a fine, strapping young fellow. So I'm really this lean too. It just, my shirt doesn't show it, like his does. Okay, so now we've got some extra weight here. Come on up here, Ben. You're okay. Come on up here, Ben. All right, now David, he's going to have some responsibility here to carry some of these. Now let's start with some lighter weights. You come on over here, and I think you're probably a little bit lighter than the average bear. All right, now you and Levi, David's going to hoist you up. Okay, get one on each arm there. All right. Uh-oh, careful. Okay, easy. All right. Okay, that's good. All right, now David, walk over there by the drums and come back. Okay. All right, that's good. Come back. Yeah, careful, Levi. That's good. Okay, easy. Okay. All right, now you put him down. Okay, so what has David modeled for us? He has not only carried himself over to the drums, which that's good. For some of us, we have a little trouble getting over there. But he has also carried 2 others. All right. Okay, now let's try 3. Ben, let's see. You can see if you can get up there see if you can get all 3 of those somewhere. Okay. Back. All right, good. Okay. All right, let's try some more. Go ahead. Come on. Get up there, guys. Somehow. 2, 3. Oh, good job. Okay, walk over the drums back. Good job. Okay, no hitting. No hitting. Yeah, that makes it harder. You're going to trip and fall. Okay, good job. Okay. Okay, now we're going to see if David can do 4. All right? Which one of you guys feels brave and you don't mind getting a little injured? Which one of you's mom isn't going to be mad at me if you get a little injured? Well, no, you guys are already... Yeah, let's get some here. You guys did... Let's see. Ben, you go over here. Levi, let's let these 3 guys come over here. You 3 guys. 1, 2, 3. Okay, all right. Now, Hannah, you stay over there. Yeah, you're an easy one to carry. Yeah, we can check. Okay. All right, David, see if you can lift all 4 of them up there. Okay, 1. Okay, good. There's 1. Hold on tight. This is good advice. 2. Okay, that's good. Carefully. Okay, good. We need another one. All right, Ben, you jump up there. Okay, Hannah, can you get in there somewhere? Okay, I'm going to vote for just stand up. Oh, now he's going. Okay, look out. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, round of applause. Good job. Okay, you guys can all go sit down. You did a wonderful job, and I'm particularly happy because no one was injured and no animals were killed during this experiment. All right, thank you. You guys can go sit down. Thank you, Ben. All right. Okay, so a little example here is that one individual was able to carry 4 others. All right, because of their choices for the most part. In order to, you all right? Get it? Okay. All right. In order to carry the burden for someone else, and that's how we ought to be as believers, right? We talk about that, carrying one another's burdens. And we talk about that in an emotional sense. We talk about that in a spiritual sense. But there's a very practical and a very real application for that. And so we've got to be here. We've got to be healthy. We've got to be ready for whatever it is that God has for us. All right. The second thing I want us to talk about is extending the quality of life. I have a lot of family members who've had a lot of health issues. Some of them are completely... there's nothing they could do about it. It had nothing to do with the choices that they made or anything like that. They just had an accident or they got cancer or something that it just wasn't their fault. So there's a lot of things like that in life that happen to us. And when we're dealt that hand, we struggle through that as best we can and we try to make the best of those circumstances. But there are a lot of health things and problems in our life that we bring on ourselves. Aren't there? Choices that we make, and maybe it's just a small choice, maybe in a little bit of the wrong direction, but we go down a path with that, and before too long, we end up in a really bad place. We end up in a place where we can barely function, where we're depressed or something, where we end up with liver damage, or we end up with heart problems, or we end up just all different things because of the choices that we made. And so I want to encourage you today to realize that there is a bigger picture that is at work here. And that just as we are called to gather together as a fellowship to do God's will, to accomplish His purposes, that we need to do some real things. And one of the reasons, I don't get too excited about working on all this stuff. I think it's great. I think it's a good thing. But I realize that it's representative of our responsibility to one another to live life together. You see, if we don't have the hard discussions like this, then we can't really live life together, can we? We can't really be real with each other if we don't help one another, if we don't address the things that concern us. It's really fascinating to me. I've looked at a lot of different surveys because this isn't the first time I've preached on this, as probably some of you are like, oh, he's preaching on this again. It's been over a year, so just for the record, for those of you whiners that are whining about that right now. I'm sure you're not doing that. You're all so polite and kind. But if you look at almost any survey and you put on a list of things that just the average person is concerned with, always in the top 3 has something to do with their weight or how they look or their fitness level or something like that. It's always something that concerns us, and yet we seem to ignore it or we don't want to talk about it, or we're embarrassed about it or something, and so we just kind of go on unhappy and frustrated with it. So today, as we kind of zero in on living lean, and this is really the last day, we're going to turn next week and we're going to talk about the person of Jesus and start gearing up for Easter and our Tenebrae service. This is the last day, but I think that it is important for us to realize that we have a responsibility, a personal responsibility for ourselves, with our money, with our health and the choices that we make with our time, to live life in such a way that we are not only serving our families and doing the things that we ought to do, but that we have some left over for the other people that are in our life. One of the most interesting things about charity, perhaps is the word you would use, is that we have to be proactive in having extra if we're going to give something away. Have you thought about that? If you're living a life in such a way that you have a desire to help people, you have to have some extra to help with, don't you? Whether that's money, whether that's time, whatever it is, you have to have that extra, and so we have to be planning for that. We have to be preparing for that. I will be honest with you. I don't, as you know, get very political. And if you want to talk politics, talk to Jeff. He'll talk to you all about that. He's got all kinds of. Most of everything I know about politics, I learned it from Jeff. He just keeps me straight, tells me how to vote, and which congressman I need to be emailing to what. So I'll let him worry about that. But I will tell you one thing. I'm very concerned about our financial situation in our country. I'm concerned primarily because of our debt. We're about to cross the $17 trillion line. Now, I want you to think, let me put this into perspective for you, okay? Our gross domestic product is just under $1 trillion. Okay, that would be like you making $20,000 a year, and you would be carrying about a little over $400,000 of debt, and saying to yourself, oh, well, I can pay that back on my $20,000 a year salary, plus live off of it. Okay? Now, you would have to be a financial genius to figure that out. Because I can't think of anyone who has offered any kind of an explanation of a way out of that without some kind of catastrophic problem. Either milk's going to cost $10 a gallon while our salaries don't change, or taxes are going to just be ridiculous. Now, hopefully I'm wrong, and maybe I don't see that right, but I have to tell you, and I want to be real with you, that personally I'm concerned about it. I'm not blaming anybody, and I'm not pointing fingers, and I'm not upset. I'm just saying that it's a very real problem that I didn't have. Whenever I was a child and I entered the workforce, I didn't have that kind of problem like you who are college students or high school students, that you are facing a very difficult future as you carry the weight of that debt. And so I believe that at some point there has to be some reconciliation for that, and that we ought to be prepared. And that is really, for me, the inspiration of these last 2 weeks of sharing some of these things with you is because I think that the scriptures are clear. Last week we looked at Joseph in Egypt, and they're preparing for a famine. I can't tell you, I really can't see the future. I really don't know what's going to happen. But I've lived just long enough to know that we might be in for a little bit of trouble. And this is a time to lean down. This is a time to spend less, to focus on your health, to get things taken care of at home, to write. I guess really it always is that time. But I think there's some extra motivation right now. And so I want to encourage you, and as we get close to our decision-making time and our invitation, I'm hoping we'll have some new members come down and join today. We had a great new members class yesterday. I'm just really excited at how God's bringing people to serve in our fellowship. But as we begin to kind of wind down and focus and take all of these different thoughts and all of these different things that we've said in a pretty broad scope. These last couple of weeks have been a pretty broad spectrum, kind of a practical type spectrum of things. But I think we need to focus on and ask the one question is, how should this affect me? And what changes do I need to make in my life? And Ed, if you'll come up and begin to play, David, if you'll turn the lights down or Erica, if you'll turn the lights down just a little bit in the audience so nobody feels self-conscious. I think we need to just take a few minutes and pray and think about that question. And ask ourselves, what is it in my life? Where is there waste? Where is there blessing that someone could be receiving that I'm just throwing in the trash? Or that I'm just eating, or I'm burning up, that I'm wasting? Where are some areas in my life that I could begin, instead of selfishly sucking it down, I could be a blessing to someone else? And let's just take a few moments and think about that. Maybe today you've kind of been exposed to some of these things and you realize that you're not really even on the path yet. That you've never really even made a decision to follow Jesus. And so all these truths and all this talk about self-control and reflecting Christ in our lives, giving to the poor and helping those in need, it's not really connecting because you've not really made a decision to follow Jesus, and maybe you need to make that decision today. Whatever decision you need to make, I will be glad to step down here and talk with you. And then we'll have a few moments of quietness and then I'll pray. So let's bow our heads and pray together. God, we thank you for the opportunity that we've had to come and be together this afternoon. God, I thank you for everyone in this room. So many good people. So many people to learn from, to encourage me when I'm down, to share truth with. What a blessing it is, God, just to have this sacred time to come and worship you and to walk this path of life that we all must walk, whether we want to or not. God, I pray that you would work in every heart today, that as we begin to think about those who are hungry, those who are in need, that we would realize how wealthy we truly are, how much we have. I pray that you would give us a desire to sacrifice of ourselves so that we could help others. Lord, that you would give us the self-control and the patience, the perseverance that we need to make whatever changes you want us to make in our life. God, I pray that as we step out in faith for those that are struggling, Lord, maybe some are just really down, they're just discouraged, they're frustrated, they've been down this road before and they've tried to control their spending, they've tried to control their eating and working out, and they just can't quite seem to do it. God, I pray that you would just comfort them, that you would encourage them, that you would help them to see that we're all here to come around them and walk that walk with them today. God, would you bless Bible study as it comes up in the next hour, our student ministry, our family ties with our children and our families. God, would you just bless that time? Let us have fellowship. Let us learn about you and just have a great time together. Would you bless Ignite tonight as our college students come together to fellowship and to worship? Would you just bless them? Would you work in their midst? Would you just continue to gather people, Lord, according to your will and according to your purposes? God, we thank you for the way that you love us. That no matter what we do or how far we stray or no matter how many bad decisions we make, that you still love us and you're still patient and ready to help us take the right steps that we know we need to take. Move in our hearts today and in the weeks to come. In Jesus' name, amen.